The divine reversal, when darkness becomes the language of God. There's a strange thing that happens when you begin to awaken as a dark chosen one. You stop resisting the storm and start listening to it. You begin to realize that the very things you thought disqualified you from being a vessel of the divine, your anger, your depression, your failures, your addictions, were precisely what God was using to forge you. This is the divine reversal. It's when everything you thought was meant to destroy you becomes the exact thing that initiates you. It's when the night doesn't just end, it becomes your teacher. Imagine this. What if your trauma was not a curse, but a calling? What if the reason you feel so deeply is because you were born to carry the depth of the collective? What if your darkest moments were the training grounds for your greatest assignment? This is not spiritual fluff. This is spiritual fire. Because once you accept this truth, you stop asking, "Why me?" And you start asking, "What now?" And that's when your real journey begins, not as a victim, but as a vessel. You see, the breaker of chains, the first dark chosen one, is not just breaking patterns in their own life. They're breaking patterns that go back generations. These are the people who stop the cycle of abuse in their bloodline. They're the ones who grow up in homes filled with violence, addiction, and abandonment, and instead of becoming what they saw, they transmute it. They become the parents they never had. They become the safety they never felt. And it's not because they had some magical help. It's because they were forged in fire. They learned to mother themselves, to father themselves, to raise themselves. And now they raise others not with words, but with energy, with presence, with truth. But this path doesn't come with applause. It comes with shadows. The breaker of chains is often the black sheep, the scapegoat, the one everyone blames because they refuse to play by the old rules. But here's the secret. The black sheep is usually the white light hidden in disguise. And when that sheep finally realizes their power, they don't just leave the flock, they lead it. Not with force, but with frequency. The seer of truth, our second chosen one, lives a life of paradox. They are both cursed and blessed by their vision. To see behind the veil is not easy. It means you can no longer pretend. You can't ignore lies. You can't stay in fake relationships. You can't work in environments that kill your soul. You see too much, and this sight often leads to isolation. But eventually the seer realizes that their isolation is not loneliness, it's consecration. They are being set apart, not for punishment, but for purpose. Because when the time comes and the world is ready, the seer will speak, and what they say will not just heal, it will awaken. Have you ever felt like you were born into a lie? Like everything around you, politics, media, even religion, was some kind of performance? That's the mark of the seer. You don't swallow narratives just because they're popular. You question, you challenge, you feel when something's off, even when no one else sees it. And that's not paranoia. That's discernment. That's the divine sharpening your inner compass. And one day that compass will guide others home. Now let's talk about the silent warrior. This is the one who walks through hell, and says nothing. Not because they're weak, but because they've learned that true power doesn't need to shout. The silent warrior has suffered in silence. They've held grief that would break most people. They've prayed in the dark with no reply. They've shown up for others while bleeding internally. And yet, they endure. Why? Because their strength isn't emotional, it's eternal. They don't just believe in God, they embody God. Not through doctrine, but through discipline, through presence, through stillness. The silent warrior teaches us that you don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be seen to be significant. Sometimes the greatest revolutions happen in silence, in the way you choose peace over revenge, love over fear, discipline over chaos. And when the world collapses, it's the silent warriors who others turn to, because they are the calm in the storm, the still point in a spinning world. Their power is invisible, but undeniable. Then there's the sacred rebel. Oh, the world misunderstands this one the most. They are called sinners, heretics, troublemakers. But in heaven, they are beloved. Why? Because they challenge the false light. They expose the illusions of empty morality, of performative spirituality, of ego disguised as enlightenment. The sacred rebel is not here to follow the rules, they're here to rewrite them. These are the prophets who scream in the wilderness. The ones who aren't afraid to confront corrupt systems, even if it costs them everything. You'll find them in music, in art, in protest, in comedy. They use whatever weapon they can, whether it's fire or poetry, to shake the sleeping awake. But here's the thing. Their rebellion is sacred because it's rooted in love. They don't tear down to destroy. They tear down to rebuild. And their fire? It's holy. It's the fire that clears the forest so new life can grow. Have you ever been labeled too much, too intense, too emotional, too honest? That's the mark of the sacred rebel. You are not too much. You are exactly enough to do what you came here to do. Stop shrinking. Stop apologizing. The world doesn't need more nice people. It needs more real people. And your authenticity is your weapon. And finally, we return to the healer of realms, the one who feels everything so deeply it hurts. This chosen one often doesn't even know they're healing others. They just walk into a room and suddenly people feel safe, feel seen, start crying without knowing why. It's because the healer carries a vibration that undoes decades of pain. But here's the price. They often don't know how to protect their own energy. They give until they're empty. They love until they bleed. They carry the weight of the world, and it almost crushes them. But there comes a point when the healer awakens. They realize that their sensitivity is their superpower, but only when it's sacredly managed. They learn boundaries. They learn how to shield, how to rest, how to receive. And when they do, their power multiplies. Because now they're not just healing from pain, they're healing from overflow. And that's when miracles happen. So let me ask you again, could it be that your greatest wounds are your greatest gifts, waiting to be realized? Could it be that your darkness is not the absence of God, but the incubation of God's presence within you? What if you stopped running from your shadows and started listening to them? What if you asked your pain, "What are you here to teach me?" You might just hear the answer, "I'm here to initiate you." You are not here by accident. You are not suffering without purpose. If you've resonated with even one of these archetypes, then I want you to hear me clearly. You are being called. Not to a religion, not to a system, but to your soul. The world doesn't need more light workers pretending to be perfect. It needs more dark chosen ones, real people, forged in fire, who carry the codes of awakening in their scars. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing, then it means your mission is not over. It means you've been chosen, not because you're better, but because you're ready.